Good evening and welcome to Altos, your weekly Catholic news program here on Trinity TV and now showing on the national television station TTT. I'm your host, Neil Parsonlal. We have a very special program in store for you today as we do an exclusive interview with Her Excellency President Christine Kangaloo, who marks the first anniversary of her inauguration as President of the Republic on March 20th. But before we get to that interview, here's a look at the other stories making the news this week. Almost 2,000 persons attend the Human Sexuality Symposium. The Archbishop says issues related to human sexuality need to be addressed by everyone. Praise and worship and more as the Bethesda community's Lenten retreat takes place on board the Harbour Master. And in some sports, it was Prez versus Prez as two Catholic schools face each other for the Secondary Schools Cricket League title. And here's our top story. Approximately 2,000 persons attended the Symposium on Human Sexuality, hosted by the Catholic Religious Education Development Institute in collaboration with Catholic Education Board of Management last week. Laura Pickford-Gordon was there and prepared this report for us.
In the face of issues and questions related to human sexuality, the Archdiocese of Port of Spain has started a series of conversations. The symposium targeted Catholic educators, but parents were also in attendance. Many children are getting their first information about human sexuality from the smartphone and pornography.
And it's hard for a child bumping into pornography before teens to understand their body, human sexuality, relationships with the other sex, and themselves.
Living a life of virtue is difficult today, while being bombarded with images and materials that shifts attention away from what God intended. The symposium was a start to help teachers and parents respond.
That God created you and your body in His image and likeness, and He created you with a design that is specific and created you with an intention that is specific for your sexuality. God has a plan for your sexuality, for you as a human being, and your sexuality is part of that.
Director of Pastoral Formation, Father Matthew Ragbear, Episcopal Delegate for the Archdiocesan Family Life Commission, Tricia Sims, and clinical psychologist Alicia Hoyt dealt with the topics of human sexuality, the realities of our response, sexual identity, and sex education, a Catholic approach. I am Laura Pickford-Gordon for Catholic News, Altos.
The stories behind the preservation and restoration of 10 churches and 3 chapels on the local landscape are highlighted with a new coffee table book entitled Manifestations of Faith. A publication of the RC Archdiocese, this spectacular book is the brainchild of architect and photographer Brian Lewis. It features the prose of Robert Clark and the design of graphic artist Melanie Archer. Clisha Best sat down with the trio to find out more about the genesis of this book, and this is what Mr. Lewis had to say.
I had an idea of my own because I am in retirement now and I have to keep busy, and I wanted to do something good. So I prepared something and took it to the Archbishop and an advisor to have a look at, and he was quite keen on it. So as a result of that, I got in touch with Melanie Archer here, who has done at least 3 books for me already. And Melanie brought in Robert to do the writing, because we had to write in an interesting way about each church, and how it was done. So that's how it began. And we put a proposal back to the Archbishop, a firm proposal, and he accepted it, So, and he chose the churches that he wanted photographed.
Researcher and author Robert Clark, who beautifully threaded the history and photos together with his narrative skills, said it was a joy retelling many of the stories of our churches.
The histories of the churches themselves, of course, are important, but there is the present day, which is the restoration and renovation, and those two things are very different. The restoration and renovation that is being done with the love of the parishioners, the help of the Archdiocese, and that's why it ended up being titled Manifestations of Faith.
And Melanie Archer was inspired by the colors of Archbishop's Chapel to create the palette for the book, and said it was an honor to have worked on this project, which also led to her receiving a prestigious award.
There's a Caribbean Advertising Federation that does ADDIE Awards every year. So there are several different categories. So I entered it for book design and won a gold. So it's a gold ADDIE winning book.
Manifestations of Faith will be launched this Saturday, 16th March, at Archbishop's House, starting at 5 p.m. The books will be on sale and the launch is open to the general public. In a departure from the ordinary, one group took their Lenten retreat to the sea last Saturday on board the Harbour Master. The Bethesda for Persons with Disabilities community group, known for creating an inclusive liturgical space for persons with disabilities, transformed the Harbour Master into the bark of Peter, worshipping God through song and celebrating Holy Mass out at sea. Here are some highlights captured by CAMCEL's Renee Smith.
Jesus on your Harbour Master, tell him what, tell him. I said, Jesus on the Harbour Master, tell him what you want.
Each one of us is like a lonely Samaritan woman struggling with our sexuality, struggling with struggles of the animal and angel in us. We are Lord, do you do? Lord, we bow.
It truly was a wonderful experience. The annual secondary entrance assessment examination will take place on Thursday, March the 21st. Videographer Barry Sideno attended a mass for students writing the exam earlier this week at the St. Charles RC Church in Tunapuna. Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon was the main celebrant.
Whatever you have learned, you have learned. And however you have disciplined yourself, you have disciplined yourself. And you've reached to this stage now where you put in what you can put in. But we also have to remember that we are here with God. And if you go to that exam next week and you're so anxious, you're so worried, you're so overburdened that you can't think straight, and all that you learned for the last 2 years is not coming back because you're blocked because of the anxiety and the worry, is that going to be useful for anybody? Anybody? Is that what we want? I'm not hearing you. Is that what we want? So we want to go into that exam calm. And the only way to go into the exam calm is to remember who is with you. Who is with you? Who is with you? And if God is with you, no one can be against you.
We wish God's blessings on all the children and on their parents who are writing the exam. Remain calm, do your best, and trust in God. All will be well. After a 12-year drought, Presentation College Chaguanas won the National Secondary Schools cricket title when they defeated their brother school, Presentation San Fernando, on Tuesday last. The two teams were 1-2 entering the final game of the season, with Pres Chaguanas 15 points ahead and Pres San Fernando needing an outright win and maximum bonus points to clinch the title. Chaguanas, batting first, made a competitive 158 for 8 in their 50 overs. Pres San Fernando, after a solid start, unfortunately lost a flurry of wickets and were eventually bowled out for 127 in 40.2 overs. This was the final wicket, which sparked wild scenes of celebrations from the Pres Chaguanas players and supporters. Pres Chaguanas ended the season unbeaten in 9 games. Fariz Aki, who scored 50 for Pres Chaguanas, was named man of the match. Congratulations to all the teams who took part in this year's competition. Up next, the T20 Intercol Tournament. And now it's time for us to take a short break, and for you to get the opportunity to answer our trivia question. When we return from the break, we will be on location at President's House. Yes, you heard me correctly. At President's House for an exclusive interview with Her Excellency President Christine Carla Kangaloo, ORTT, as we look back on her first year in the country's top office, the Office of the President. Stay with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back after the break, and welcome to President's House, where we have the opportunity today and the distinct pleasure to interview for the first time exclusively on Altos Her Excellency President Christine Kangaloo as she celebrates the first year of her ascendancy to the office of the President. President Kangaloo, it's great to have you. Welcome to Altos.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Excellent. This is March 20th, marks the first anniversary of your inauguration as President of the Republic. Describe for us in one word how the journey has been for the last year.
May I use my president's prerogative and give you 2 words?
Of course you can.
Yes. So, challenging, rewarding.
Challenging and rewarding.
Yes, those would be the 2 words that I would use.
What has made it challenging and what has made it rewarding for you so far?
The challenging aspect came from the change in my life,
Oh, yes.
in our lives, my husband's as well. There are things that we had to adjust to. So, for example, the word spontaneous doesn't arise. You know, we can't just decide that we want to go to the mall,
Right.
or, you know, go to visit friends. Those things have to be planned. So there were adjustments that we had to make. So that's just one example. There are other challenging parts of being the president with respect to the work itself. So, for example, trying to find persons to serve. Persons are very reluctant. You're trying to get different persons to come and serve on different boards.
The commissions.
But they are quite afraid of being in public life and what that entails. So that has been a challenging part of it.
But has your experience in public life, I mean, if you share that with them, has that been any kind of comfort at all?
Yes. No, not at all. I have tried that. I've tried to point out that I have been doing this for quite some time. But you find that given the environment, persons are really reluctant to step up, to serve in that public way.
Right.
So that has been a major challenge for the office.
And that reluctance comes with a lot of the declarations that people would have to make.
That's correct.
In other words, putting your business out in the road, as we say.
Yes,
There is that hesitance.
That's correct,
That. Your Excellency, you spoke of the loss of spontaneity. Does that mean that you no longer get to go to the grocery, you no longer get to do the simple pleasures of life that you're accustomed to?
I'm actually able. Remember, I spoke earlier about being very grateful to our detail. So yes, I get to go to the grocery from time to time and do my
your own
rounds
shopping
and that sort of thing. Yes. And very interestingly, when I last went to the grocery, a woman came up to me and she said, "Do you know that you look like the president of Trinidad and Tobago?" I said, "Really?" Yes, and then it dawned on her. But it was very funny.
Speaking to the
yes,
president.
yeah. So yes, I get to do those things as well. Yeah.
So that's a challenging part. What has been rewarding for you in this?
Rewarding, and I have to say, I said challenging first because the rewards have been tremendous and outweigh the challenges. It's a privilege to be in this office, to hold this office. My interaction with young people has been tremendously exciting and encouraging, and that aspect of it has really lifted both my husband and me as we go through this stage of our lives.
And would you say this has been the most rewarding part of the job so far?
Yes, of course, yes.
Being with the children.
Yeah.
Yes?
Another highlight for me of the last year was having the national awards returned to President's House. That was also a big undertaking to get it to be hosted here again, because in the past they used to be at President's House. So that was something that I was really pleased with during the first year.
So there are lots of people who believe that the president has a lot more authority than she has. So you couldn't just snap your fingers and let it come back here.
No, the decision to have it here was easy, you know. But of course, you know, you had to make adjustments to the number of persons who could be invited. But ultimately, I think we were all very pleased with the reception that we got from the awardees coming to President's House. I think it made it a lot more significant for them, the entire occasion, and we were happy that we achieved that.
And
that we got
happy to host the national awards.
Yeah, and that of course was tying in to the fact we wanted the President's House to be accessible.
Right, the accessibility.
So it tied in, you know.
Everything,
Yeah.
yes. Now, you would have served in this office previously. You'd have acted on occasion.
Yes.
As the president, in your capacity as Senate president, you'd have acted. But now you are the president. How has that transition been for you from being you're just an acting appointment to now being every day waking up and realizing, hey, I am the president?
So having acted as president on a few occasions, that did help because there were certain logistics that you immediately understood.
Yes.
And I knew the staff, I knew the personnel, I knew what to expect as I walked into the office, what would be some of the responsibilities. But as the person who holds the office, it's a completely different thing in that where you want to take the presidency, the goals that I have for the presidency, for that office, those lie with me. And therefore, shaping it, that the acting could not have prepared me for this. You know, so yes, I'm really grateful that I did act so that I knew some of it. But of course, as the president, you then have to really set the goals of your presidency. You have to make appointments that I didn't have to do before in that sense. So the responsibility lies with you as the president.
But as you mentioned, the goals of the presidency and shaping that, defining the presidency as your own, putting your footprint on the presidential footprint, so to speak. What are some of the goals you have for the president, for the office of the president? What are some of those goals you have?
So what I had laid out in my address for my inauguration, that has been like my roadmap.
Okay.
So I talked about the office of the president being more accessible. I talked about young people and the focus on young people. I talked about reviewing the protocols that accompany the office and try to make sure that the protocols don't make the office inaccessible, the president inaccessible to persons, that the protocols serve the office. So all of that was laid out in that speech, and that's exactly what I've been trying to focus on as we move forward.
Where do you get the strength to do this?
Well, I enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the challenge of being the president. I love the interaction with not just the young people. I love the interaction as I move about the country. The interactions that I get with citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, I have the strength of my husband. He is my support. I have the strength of my family, my friends, and needless to say, I have my faith. So all of that really work in tandem to give me that strength.
And tell us, how has your faith, been that level of support for you? How has your faith helped you to define your presidency thus far?
So my faith is a part of me.
Good.
So it doesn't just help me with being president. It's me. It's who I am. It's to get like an IT application. It's like the operating system in my life. So I try on a daily basis to always practice my faith, to show the values, to practice the values of my faith, to be honest, to be kind, to be forgiving, so that's what I do. And that's how I am able to work through all that faces me on a day-to-day basis.
Because in your inaugural address, you thanked the community at St. Anne's RC
Yes.
for their support.
That's correct.
How was that? Are you still able to go to Mass on a regular basis, to do those things?
Not as, and I'm hoping Father Allen is not looking at this, not as regularly as I would like, but we still consider ourselves a part of that community, and they've been very kind and supportive for a number of years, but even more so for the last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's always good to have the faith community, in your corner,
That's correct.
so to speak.
Yes.
But it's not just the faith. You've had some your story itself, a survivor, a cancer survivor. You lost one of your brothers, Justice Kangaloo. And how have those events, your faith plus your own story, how have those helped to define who is President, Kangaloo and your presidency?
So I actually lost another sibling as well. My only sister, I lost as well. And I was treated for cancer of the breast. I was healed physically, but any cancer survivor will tell you there's an emotional healing that has to come as well. And there was emotional healing that had to come after the deaths of my siblings. I've lost very good friends to cancer as well. So this healing that I'm talking about continues. It's an ongoing process, and I treat with that. I have to deal with that because cancer, loss of your friends, and there are certain things you lose. What cancer in and of itself brought loss to me. So it is dealing with that. But I will also say that those experiences have created in me an empathy that also is something that I feel, my empathy for human beings, not just human beings who have cancer or who have lost their loved ones, but my empathy helps me to identify with people, identify the brokenness in all of us as human beings. And so those experiences have taught me that, and they help me in a sense to, at times, I'm called upon to comfort people who go through similar situations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is, I think that's what the country is seeing in the presidency at this point in time. Very empathetic, a very caring, president, someone who reaches out, very comfortable, with children, but very comfortable with brokenness as well, simply because you have experience. So in a very real sense, Your Excellency, a wounded healer.
Well,
do you see yourself in that way?
Well, I know that I'm wounded. We all are. And I just try to do my part to just help in whatever way I can. Yeah.
And that's excellent. That's what we call to do. One of the goals you have is that of, and you mentioned it in your inaugural address, is that of demystifying the presidency in terms of the protocols, in terms of access. People, we see pictures on a daily basis, almost daily basis, of people walking through President's house.
Yes.
How has that demystification process been going for you?
Well, it's going well, I think. We have tours of the President's house. Those tours have been ramped up. So we have more tours going on now. We have tours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Children from different schools all over the country come for those tours, where they learn about the history of President's house. They learn about different protocols with the President, the office of the President. We also offer the tours not just to school children. So we have adults who request tours as well, and they are given the tours. So that's one aspect of it. then His Excellency and I, my husband and I, have been going to schools. Just last week, we went to 4 schools we visited, and we talk about the role of the president. We talk about the presidency with the school children. In fact, after our visit last week, Wednesday, we toured, one of the schools was Presal Secondary School. We spoke to 5 Form 1 classes. And we spoke about the role of the president, the history of the presidency. And then poor students, they got some homework. So they're supposed to send in, via their teachers, they're supposed to send in for us to look at what they have learned about the presidency. So that is taking root as well, that drive to go out and talk to young people about the presidency. I don't know if you remember, in my inauguration speech, I also spoke about Standard Force Sing from San Fernando Girls Primary School. And they came to visit us.
Immediately after.
Right, yes. And they presented, they had a board game that they had done. They made up this board game which set out all the roles and functions of the president. So I think the initiative to demystify is taking root, and we have other initiatives that are in the pipeline. We want to have secondary schools involved in debates. So I think it's going well. I'm really pleased with the progress.
And you spoke of the demystification, but that's outside. What about in terms of your own staff here?
Yes.
How have they responded to you as president? How have they responded to this new role that they play in terms of their being, here to serve the president?
They've been outstanding. So one of the high points of last year, of the first year, was the children's party that we hosted. It was, the staff just helped with everything for that children's party, and the joy that the staff, the joy on their faces was only outdone by the joy of the children. But it really was gratifying to me to see how the staff really got into that children's party.
What do you think is the biggest myth surrounding the presidency?
I think people think that the president has more authority in certain areas, So young students, for example, mix up the role of the president with that of the prime minister. So those are some of the main issues that we are faced with.
And that's a demystification that we're talking about.
And that's why when we go out to the schools, the children sometimes ask questions. They can't differentiate between the
office of the president,
and the office of the prime minister. So in going out to the schools and chatting with the students, that is something that we're trying to, of course, bring to their attention. And they seem to be, well, when I get the homework that I gave them, I'll see.
And do you get people telling you that they want your job?
Yes, of course. The children are also, they are in awe when the president comes, because they see what will come with the president. So they see the security, and they think it's a lot, it's very glamorous.
But you advise them otherwise?
Well, I just tell them to work hard, and if this is something, they just have to work hard and focus on their education and, do their very best. Whatever happens, happens. Yes. Yeah.
In terms of the visits to the schools, can you say how many schools you visited so far?
We've visited 4 and 3, 7. Seven schools.
Seven schools so far. How does one go about making an application for a tour to President's House, of President's House?
The school writes to the Office of the President, and we respond immediately. They simply say they want to have a tour. Most schools will suggest a date, but we are literally booked up now, so we always get back in touch and arrange the tours for different dates. Yeah, we actually had a tour last week of a school from Guyana. Yes, they were here, these Guyanese students, and they wanted to, and we facilitated a tour of President's House as well.
So what was their impression of President's
From
House?
what I heard, I couldn't be here, unfortunately, but from what I heard, they really enjoyed the tour, and they asked a lot of questions. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's going well.
It's going well.
Yeah.
Your Excellency, this is a good time for us to take a short break.
Sure.
And when we come back after the break, we'll talk a little bit more with Her Excellency about the demystification process and her speech about the panyards and the discipline in the panyards and schools in the panyards. So let's take a short break and we come right back.
Altos, from the Latin altus, meaning high. Every Friday night we feature the top news items hot off the press. We are taking a leap of faith on Trinity TV. Jump in with us for this new and exciting experience.
Welcome back. We're at President's House speaking today exclusively with President Christine Kangaloo. It's the first year of her inauguration into the office of the President. And we're having a wonderful conversation so far. President Kangaloo, you spoke earlier, just to go back a little bit, you spoke earlier about the influence of what the loss of your brother and the loss of your sister. And please accept our condolences. But it really speaks, what it said to us was how much family means to you and how much family has contributed to defining and making the person you are.
Yes.
Our country today, family, the disintegration of the family is evident around us. Can you speak a little more about how your family has impacted your own growth, your own development to the point of where you are today?
Well, I consider myself privileged that my family, that we remained such a strong unit. And we've always been a tight unit. So my brothers, when we lost my sister, my brothers rallied around me to make sure that that all would be well with me.
Yes.
You know, they became extra protective of me. My mother, my father has passed away.
Yes.
So my mother, who will be 96 this month, is a very, very strong influence in my life. To this day, I can be president, but I'm her daughter. So the buffs can still come. And so the family unit has been a strong source of support for me throughout. Yeah.
Good.
And I really, families may not have the kind of unit that I had, but family can be, I remember speaking at a graduation where I was encouraging the young children, to their teachers, family, you can have a network of support. You may not have the traditional family, but you may have a network of support around you, and that's important for our young people, to have adults that they can trust and that they can go to for that kind of support and encouragement.
And one of the things you indicated in terms of your own desire for the presidency is really to encourage that kind of mentorship as well for young people. One of the things that stuck out in your inaugural address was that issue of developing the Panyard model for discipline amongst our youth, and in fact, how has that been going? Did you visit any Panyards for Carnival? I'm not going to ask you what is your favorite band or who's your favorite band. But what about the Panyard that strikes you as being something that we could really, really put some time and effort into?
Well, there's enough literature on it. I mean, and then there's the anecdotal evidence that the Panyard, the structure of the Panyard, the discipline, the way young people they come to it and they're focused on what they're doing. I mean, everyone talks about that Panyard model, the concept of it, as something that should be shown in all our communities for our young people to be a part of that. Because we can't deny that that our country, our young people need to hold on and to be focused and disciplined about something. And we've heard about the Panyard model. So His Excellency and I, because I don't know if you remember that part of the speech where he was tasked, my husband was tasked with the responsibility for all the cultural and artistic endeavors, and he has been extremely supportive. So we have been meeting with stakeholders, and very soon, I don't want to talk about it yet, but very soon we'll be able to showcase that Panyard model. Okay. And we want to showcase that Panyard model for it to be emulated in all the communities in Trinidad and Tobago and supported to give our young people that support. Yes.
The Panyard model, some people, the whole question of pan and pan in schools, for instance, is not everybody's cup of tea, so to speak. Yeah? In terms of what you envisage for this discipline, the model, pan in schools, would you like to see a steel pan ensemble in every school in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, let me just say, before I answer that, and I want to say that apart from talking about the Panyard model, there has been advocacy on my part for pan itself.
The pan itself.
Pan as a national instrument. So I don't know if you remember in my first address to Parliament, that was one of the issues that I raised for the steel pan to be declared our national instrument. Apart from that, the advocacy extends, for example, to the fact that there's a fanfare that greets me for certain official functions. And for the International Steel Pan Day last year, we incorporated pan into that fanfare. So there's a general advocacy for pan that I'm going to continue with.
Excellent.
We actually hosted our first concert for Mother's Day, BP Renegades, in collaboration with Office of the President, and we had a wonderful Mother's Day concert last year. So all of that is to, of course, highlight and advocate for our national instrument.
And as President, you will push for, as you did in the Parliament, you would like to see the steel pan declared as a national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes. I think it's an important and very significant step that has to be taken because the steel pan belongs to Trinidad and Tobago.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Over the course of the carnival just gone, you saw lots of younger people play, in the steel bands, and in fact, like most things, you saw a lot of young women, taking over the steel pan, so to speak. What are your thoughts on that in terms of that female, component almost taking over the steel pan now, and the younger people getting involved in the pan?
I'm happy on both counts for young people to be involved in pan, for there to be female representation as well. I think it is wonderful, and it fills me with satisfaction.
One of the areas you spoke of in terms of the demystification is that ability of the population to hold the president to account. How do we do that? How is that going? Where do you see that manifesting in time to come?
Well, I also spoke about the fact that it would start with our primary school children, and that's exactly what, in my outreach, in visiting the schools, that's what we're trying to accomplish, to talk to them, to give them a sense of what the presidency is about, what are the differences between the authority of a president and the authority of a prime minister, a little bit about the history of the presidency in Trinidad and Tobago. So that is the thrust in our outreach to all the different schools.
You are the second female president, you succeeded, Her Excellency President Paula May Weeks. We've just celebrated International Women's Day. Do you see yourself and the role you play now as being a champion for, feminist rights and for women in society, the growth, the development, the advancement of women in the Trinidad and Tobago society now?
The fact that Trinidad and Tobago has a second female president is outstanding in my view, in the sense that it means that there's no position that a female cannot aspire to in Trinidad and Tobago. To me, it's even more powerful that I'm the second president. It's a quick succession. So you had the first female president, and then you have the second female president. So to me, it's quite significant, and it just shows, and it is clear that there is no position in Trinidad and Tobago that a female cannot occupy. And we see females occupying so many positions in financial institutions. So the sky's the limit.
The sky's the limit for
yes.
women. The areas that you spoke of in your inaugural address spoke to the modernizing of the protocols that govern, how citizens relate with the office of the president. What are some of those protocols that you think need modernization, and how have you gone about modernizing these protocols?
So when I spoke about that, it was because I was concerned that the protocols which are to serve the office of the president could have the unintended effect of making the president inaccessible, aloof from the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It has been challenging to address the protocols issue because there has to be a balance. I mean, the protocols are there to, of course, ensure that there's the dignity and respect for the office of the president, that they will always be there. So you have to balance, you always have to keep that in mind. I must say that when we go out, when my husband and I go to functions and that sort of thing, we are now relating, moving around, trying to meet as many persons as we can. And our security detail, they've been very good about it. Understanding our need to do this. And we think that in a way that's making us, and making the presidency more accessible to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So it's a work in progress, but I think that we have made some significant strides in addressing how people relate to the office of the president.
And just as there's a myth and the mystery surrounding the presidency, you've moved in, you're the first president in a very long time to actually live on President's House. Are there any ghosts running around the place? No?
No.
No, there are no ghosts running around the place.
No.
How has that
Actually,
part...
now that you've put that in my head, and but no, so far no.
But how has that part of the presidency, moving into this structure that is so rich in history, how has that been for you, that readjustment in terms of, have you redesigned for yourself?
Initially, it was difficult. I knew from before that we would be moving. We had made that decision to move into the residence. There was nothing to hold us back from doing that. But it was an emotional thing. I was leaving my home, what I consider my home, my space. My husband and I, this was the home that we built up. And so the emotional component of that decision and actually doing it, and it took a toll. But having moved here, it was the right decision. Yes. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely residence. And it's, as you say, it's full of history, and we feel privileged to be part of it. And everyone has been very kind to us to make sure that all our needs are met. So it has been, as I say, a little roller coaster, because I do miss my home at times, but it was the right decision, and we've settled in to the President's House.
And you're president, but you're also wife and homemaker.
Correct. Yes.
What have you done here to make it your home?
Well, I've added my touches to the residence, to our space, and that sort of thing. I cook.
You cook?
Yes, I still take time to cook to bake and that sort of thing, because that's my also stress
therapy,
relievers. And so I've been doing that, and
That's good, because moving into the space, there's loss on one hand, but certainly making this your own has
That's
been
correct.
that is its own therapy.
Yeah, and then from time to time we go back to our home and spend some time there as well. So there's a balance.
Does the first gentleman join you in the cooking and the baking?
No, but he's a good guinea pig. Yeah, for whenever recipes are being tried. Yes,
okay.
Excellent guinea pig. Yeah.
Madam President, as we come to the close of the interview, there are a couple of things that, as a country, we talk about, the beauty of the country, the culture, the diversity of the country. Do you think that we're doing enough to harness that as a country? And if not, what else can we do?
I think there's always more to be done. I mean, nothing is perfect. But you ask that question, and we just look at what Ashley achieved over the weekend.
Yes.
And, a remarkable example of our culture and our diversity, and how it, the culture, the diversity were all well received, So all that I can say about that, we are such a wonderful country, a rich country when it comes to culture and diversity. I mean, look, we are out of Carnival, we're into Lent. The Hindus just celebrated Shivratri. We are now into the period of Ramadan as well. And everyone is respecting the different religions and participating as well. So while there can always be more, my take on it is that we all do our best to represent. And that's all we can do.
And later this month, we have the celebration of the Shouter Baptist Liberation Day as well.
Yeah.
So that's coming together.
Yes.
Yeah? We talk about sport tourism, we talk about business tourism. Is there something that we can do to showcase to the world that this is who we are and this is a place where people can come to?
Well, I think we're doing it. And what I'm saying is, every time we step out, we go to other countries, what we must do is represent Trinidad and Tobago, and represent well. And, to me, our country really has so much to offer in terms of that diversity and the beauty and the traditions that we celebrate. Everybody, I'm sure more can be done, but I think that a lot has been done as well. I think we're recognized for that already.
Madam President, final words in terms of to women, as a woman, a cancer survivor, female president, second in succession, a word to the women of Trinidad and Tobago.
What I said before, that there is no barrier. There's nothing that you can say is unattainable, but it requires hard work, it requires focus, it requires discipline, and just do your best. When I talk to young people, I say to them, do your best, don't worry about the outcomes. Because when I was their age, I told them, because someone asked me that last week when we went to the schools, did you want to be president? Go talk to my teachers, and they would tell you they would never have conceived that the talkative Christine Kangaloo would be president of the country. But education was very important to me, and I worked hard at it. And it's discipline, it's work, it's focus. And you never know where that will take you. But for the young people, work hard, just do your best, and don't worry about the outcomes.
And on this anniversary, your first anniversary as president, what do you say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago?
the same thing, that work hard, do your best. If every citizen were to put their best foot forward. We have challenges in this country, but we are a beautiful, beautiful place, people, and hugely talented. So if we could all just try to do our best on a daily basis, and I need to tell Trinidad and Tobago, just these citizens, to love your country. There's no other place like it. Be patriotic and love your country. Understand that you have challenges. Be upset about the challenges, but don't bad talk your country. Love it. You live here, and whatever you do, continue to want to live in Trinidad and Tobago. It is a beautiful place.
So like our road march said, there's no place like home.
Correct. Yes.
President Kangaroo, we really want to thank you for spending this time with us on Altos. It's been an absolute pleasure being here at President's House and conversing with you.
Thank you
and we
very
look forward
much.
to seeing you again and chatting with you again on another occasion, perhaps at another anniversary.
Sure, but thank you very much, and thank you to your team as well.
Very well.
Thank you.
We've been chatting with President Christine Kangaroo. We'll take a short break now. We ask you to stay with us and join us after the break. Welcome back. After that break, we thank Her Excellency for accommodating us at President's House for the interview. First, we had Greenscape, the Catholic news promotion that brought our parishes together. Now, we have Steps for Hope, a 5K and 1K that will further unite our parishes. Here's a little more in our story today, and you'll see some familiar faces. Catholic news editor Raymond Sims, Roger Sant, and others who will join us to tell us a little bit more about Steps for Hope.
I'm a runner. Of course I run the savannah.
I'm a runner. Of course I have more than one running shoes. I'm a runner. Of course I just run every chance I get.
The Catholic News is staging its first 5K on Saturday, May the 11th.
We want you to participate. The race starts and ends at the Queen's Park Savannah.
Registration has started. It's open to everyone. You can go to buffersports.com.
And Malabar Parish won the Greenscape competition. Let's see which parish will take this Steps for Hope. Who knows, you might see other persons from the Camsel team on that 5K. We turn now to our clergy anniversaries, and we do have some special anniversaries this coming week. One, for instance, is Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon, who celebrates his 33rd anniversary of priesthood, as does Monsignor Esau Joseph. Father Dwight Merrick celebrates his 31st anniversary as a priest. We wish them all God's richest blessings. And remember, Tuesday is the Feast of St. Joseph, so we commend these men of God to the safe hands of St. Joseph. Let's take a look now at some upcoming events in the Archdiocese. And Catholic News editor Raymond Sims gives us a preview of what's in store in this week's Catholic News.
In this week's issue of the Catholic News,
Soon to be ordained Reverend Maurice White describes his journey to the priesthood and his calling as priest. And read what was presented at the recent Human Sexuality Symposium. I am Raymond Sims, editor of the Catholic News.
And so we thank you for tuning in this week to Altos. We thank especially Cheryl Lala and Commander Dre Moore from the Office of the President for all their assistance in facilitating us with the interview with Her Excellency. We close this week's program with our Lenten prayer intercession. See you next week, and God bless.
Lord, we offer up in prayer today victims of crime, trauma, and those in oppression. Please heal anyone and their families struggling with life's challenges. We thank you, Father, for the ultimate price you paid on the cross to forgive us for our sins. May we all be released from the pain we experience in our daily lives and continue to give us hope. Amen.